we've made elk hunting, and by we, I mean us in the hunting media, you and I, have made
Sure,
elk hunting
sure.
seem like it's this vastly different process and vastly different kind of hunting than some of the other, hunting we do, deer,
Sure.
mule deer or whatever. But it's really not. It's a
No.
scalability thing. And it's a matter of figuring out those things like you're talking about with that saddle and, the year to year rut sign that's in there, and taking those and applying it to what you're seeing right now when you're hunting, or what you can see this morning when you're walking around out there and going, okay, they are here. Like they are
Yeah,
using this,
exactly.
and starting off with those ideas of like, okay, I know this is the exit route, or I know this is a good funnel between these two spots. I know that this dark timber is going to be security cover, and putting that stuff together and then getting out there and going, okay, that dude's bugling up there. This one's bugling over here, or nothing's sounding off, but I can smell elk, and just piecing all of that together into something that it doesn't rely solely on the scouting and the e-scouting. It also relies on taking that information and using it in the moment. And it's a lot to process. It's a lot to put into an article, but it's
Yeah.
the reality of hunting just about anything.
Well, and case in point to what you're saying is exactly what happened when I killed my bull last year. We went into an area that, that a buddy of mine, JC, he wanted to go check this area out. And we went in there, and to this day, even in draw units, even where I was at this, I've never seen the amount of rubs, old, new, that I've seen on this particular hillside and along this ridge. It was insane. The tracks were there. The crap was greasy. We saw a spike. We saw one bull sneaking through the timber. They just weren't making any. They were making zero noise for whatever reason that day, even though we had a great elk caller with us, even though we knew what we were doing. We couldn't get them to talk, but we knew that they were there. So the next morning, we simply took a look at a weather app and went and said, okay, tomorrow morning is going to be the absolute coldest morning of our entire trip, and it's going to be about a 13-degree temperature drop over the average of the last 4 or 5 days. We knew the bulls were there. We knew the cows were there. We knew the sign was there. The old sign told us that this is where they like to rut. It was a long bench, and we climbed the hill that morning, and it was Jurassic Park in there. I mean, it was like what you'd watch on a Primos video. It was like, which bull do we go after? And, we ended up walking. Roy and I ended up walking in on a bull that would just kept bugling but wouldn't come, and I shot him at 18 yards. But, could have easily went into that spot and been like, oh, they're just not talking. They're not bugling. I've done that before. I've blown hunts and screwed things up so bad. I've left elk because I was convinced they weren't talking, instead of actually sitting there and going, okay, why aren't they talking? Or is there a bunch of guys blowing a bugle, or is there a bunch of guys blowing a flute bugle? What's going on? In this case, there was nobody there, but the temperatures were they were scorchers. And those bulls just weren't super active. Yeah, they might sound off here and there, but man, when that temperature dropped, it cracked. I mean, it was like that light switch flipped, and they were for 3 or 4 hours that morning, they were getting after it.
Yeah. I think there's like a problem with understanding game densities in that situation, where we're just used to, elk in an over the counter unit are a low density animal, and you got a lot of country. And so it's easy to talk yourself into believing they're not there. And a lot of times they might not be, but you think about it like turkey hunting. If you were to turkey hunt some of the places I turkey hunt here in Minnesota, yeah, if you went out at 2:00 in the afternoon and it's the end of April, you might be like, there's no gobbling going on, but you're never going to say there aren't any turkeys here, because you know they are somewhere.
Yep.
They're somewhere within the section. But when you go elk hunting and elk hunting gets rough, it's easy to believe they're always gone, and that's not entirely the case. And the thing about it is, I've realized, because you and I have hunted early when it hasn't been a bugle fest. It's been brutal, right? It's been quiet.
It's been very, yeah.
But like last year when I hunted with Tyler, we heard a lot more bugling. But it's so interesting that if you're out in kind of more open ground, you can hear that bugle so far away, because that's what they're supposed to do on the prairie. Yeah. That's where that sound came from. But you get them into the dark timber, and it doesn't carry as far as people think. And so
Really
you go stand up on a hog's back or something, and you're looking out all over this dark timber, and you think, well, there's nothing responding to my bugle, or I can't hear anything, no cow chirping. Maybe they're not there. Maybe they're not talking, or maybe they're talking and you're not hearing them.
Yep, exactly right. And then that's very possible. And elk are where you find them. So, I'm a firm believer that if you're around elk for any amount of time and you really get around elk, you're gonna hear them, But even if you don't hear them, if you're seeing them, that's about as best of an indicator to say that they're here as anything. It was like when we were up hunting that year and we were seeing elk every day. I mean, you got a shot at a cow. We had multiple encounters, but they were just aimlessly. It just wasn't happening with the calling. And then you start questioning things like, well, man, maybe it's my calling or anything like that. But then we're sitting over a water source and we look up and we've called in a mountain lion laying on a log. Mm-hmm. And that lion mistook us as a cow elk. And that's all we were doing was sitting there making light cow talk. And we called in a lion. So again, it's paying attention to all those things and not always thinking that something's necessarily like, I think a lot of times we go into this, well, everything's wrong. The weather's wrong. The animals are wrong. This isn't work. This is da-da-da-da-da. And then things get extremely negative very quickly. But instead of looking at what's going right, what are we doing and what we ended up doing was what was going right was we're stumbling onto elk and bumping them all over the place. But we know they're coming to this water hole. Oh, geez, let's sit over the water. And we all has the worst. I mean, we all been killed. We had that bull less than 5 yards from us, which he never should have came from that direction, but he did, and we just couldn't get drawn on him. Yep. But we did everything right up into, and that was it. You tried to draw and he spooked, and that was the end of it. But we could have easily just said these elk aren't talking, and we've probably scared them too many times, and we bumped them, but we were seeing them all the time. So we just had to change a tactic and make a move, and that's what we did.
Yeah, well, that hunt, that was a cool hunt because we were around bulls every day, even though I think we heard like 4 bugles all week.
Yeah.
But it was a lesson on what being a good elk hunter takes in that kind of unit, because you weren't going to call them in. Corey Jacobson could probably go into that unit and not call in a bull. That wasn't the thing then. Yeah. But so then you got to switch tactics. And this is something I'm seeing, getting locked into sort of a, have to call them in. Or in the whitetail world, I see a lot of young, like these, go get them public land guys, right? It's like, right. I'm going to go, guerrilla warfare this river bottom till I find the perfect spot. And then I'm going to sit all day, every day. And I love the enthusiasm.
Right.
But when the walls close in like that and you're like, this is how I'm going to do it. Cause think about how many times we've been on a whitetail hunt somewhere on public land. Like I go in really confident sometimes that this is going to be it. It's going to be easy. We're going to do this. And then you get there and it pours rain for 4 days and your water hole pattern's toast, or you get there and there's, 6 trucks on the walk-in ranch you really want to hunt. You go, okay, we got to it's so common to have to reset and give yourself other options. And if you're so dead set on pushing a certain kind of program, you're really not giving yourself a fair chance.